From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Peggy Noonan writing in the Wall Street Journal, the culture war is a leftist offensive. Sort of a important piece from Peggy Noonan because the left is now casting themselves as the victim of cultural warriors from the right, as they've done for the last 50 years at least. She writes about a piece from Kevin Drum, who's a hard left, veteran of Mother Jones, Washington Monthly. He titled his piece on his blog, Kevin Drum did, "If you hate culture wars, blame liberals." It is not conservatives who have turned American politics into a culture war battle, writes leftist Kevin Drum. Since roughly the year 2000, according to survey data, Democrats have moved significantly to the left on most hot-button issues, while Republicans have moved only slightly right. And, of course, that's true when he cites the data on the issues from abortion to religion to guns, marriage redefinition, immigration, taxes. He's not personally unhappy with this, of course. Kevin Drum isn't. He likes the direction. But he's concerned about the electoral viability of moving faster to the left than the American populace is. Can we continue to drag them this quickly, this far, without losing political power, which is their main aim? And this is the argument that Ross Douthat makes over at the New York Times as well, suggesting this is the opportunity, in part, that the right has because they're moving so fast left. I'm not so sure that Douthat has it quite sussed out because in order to highlight what's happening, you have to be willing to engage on the merits on these issues, and so few Republicans, even conservatives, are. Why? So to my thesis, this is important because the left is trying to put this on the right, as they've successfully done, to their electoral benefit for off and on for the last 50 years. Now enter Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation for Teachers. Here's her distillation of what's happening throughout the country.
With critical race theory?
With critical race theory.
I want to hear this.
And who is fomenting the discord?
Let's be clear. Critical race theory is not taught in elementary schools or middle schools or high schools. It's a method of examination taught in law school and in college that helps analyze whether systemic racism exists, and in particular, whether it has an effect on law and public policy. But culture warriors are labeling any discussion of race, racism, or discrimination as CRT to try to make it toxic. They are bullying teachers and trying to stop us from teaching students accurate history. This harms students. These cultural warriors want to deprive students of a robust understanding of our common history. This will put students at a disadvantage in life by knocking a big hole in their understanding of our country and the world. Yale historian Timothy Snyder likens it to the memory laws of Soviet and other repressive and authoritarian regimes. Because authoritarians take actions designed to manipulate interpretation of the past, then assert a mandatory view of events, and then forbid discussion of accurate historical facts.
Well, look, I will concede that Randy Weingarten certainly knows an authoritarian when she sees one, seeing that she is one. But now, do you understand what they're doing? You understand why I call them intellectual arsonists? To oppose boiling down America into a victim group and an oppressor group based on race identity is the same as saying, we're not going to learn about slavery. We're not going to learn about Jim Crow laws. We're not going to learn about the civil rights movement. We're not going to learn about any of these. We're not going to learn about Black Wall Street in Tulsa. We're not going to learn about all the contributions that Black Americans have made to this great country, which is, of course, a lie. No one is saying that. And it's teachers who are being bullied because there is disagreement. See, disagreeing with Randy Weingarten and her teachers is to bully, which is the posture of the authoritarian. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Voddie Baucham, who is the Dean of the School of Divinity at African Christian University in Zambia, and author of the most recently of the book Fault Lines, The Social Justice Movement and Evangelicalism's Looming Catastrophe, which I just read recently, and it is quite a great distillation on the social justice warriors and these intellectual arsonists that I described. Voddie Baucham, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Excited to be with you.
Yes. So your reaction to what you heard from the head of the largest teachers union in America about, to oppose critical race theory is to bully teachers, is to try to erase American history, because to oppose a discussion about this esoteric theory only taught in law schools is to suggest that we're not going to cover anything regarding race relations in American history.
Yeah, I wonder what these people think we've been doing, for the last couple of 100 years. It's amazing to me that these people, on the one hand, want to say that they have a proper understanding of history without having been taught critical race theory, because they say it's only done in law schools, but that if we oppose critical race theory, it's because we don't want to have a proper understanding of history. Those two things are mutually exclusive. It just logically does not work.
In a piece that you wrote about these anti-racism, which is to say racist zealots, you write that anti-racism has become a religion. It demands a blind faith, and you write, it is punitive, for it is a religion without grace. And I thought that was a very interesting way to characterize it. Describe what you mean, it's a religion without grace.
What I mean is, for the anti-racist, first of all, being anti-racist is not the same as being non-racist, right? Being non-racist is racist, according to anti-racism. And if that sounds crazy to you, then you haven't been following what's going on.
Right.
But to be anti-racist is about tearing down structures. The assumption is that all of the structures in America are racist and they have to be torn down. And doing the work of anti-racism, according to the anti-racists, is ongoing and never ending. So there is no there. You never finish doing the work of anti-racism unless you eradicate white people and whiteness, because they are the source of racism. So as long as there are white people, there will be no end of racism.
Right, because you can't stop the gravy train that Robin DiAngelo and Ibram Kendi are on.
Exactly. And they're not the only ones. And ultimately, this is about power. This is about people, giving up their power. Theoretically, it's about, white, male, heterosexual, able-bodied, cisgendered, on and on and on. It's about those people giving up their power to everyone on the other side of that ledger. But in the end, this is about defining ourselves into, never-ending, ever-increasing numbers of groups that can claim to be oppressed and therefore demand that power be ceded to them.
So what do you say to the devout Christian who says, Voddie, I'm doing the Lord's work. Jesus was a revolutionary, and he opposed unjust systems of oppression. He freed people from systems of oppression. That's what I'm trying to do in my own imperfect way as a devout Christian in this country. trying to free people from the oppression of systemic racism, and trying to reconcile and promote reconciliation among the races from the ravages of slavery and Jim Crow. How do you respond?
Yeah, you've got to define your terms rightly. Was Jesus considered a revolutionary? Yes, but what did he revolt against? And interestingly enough, you've got people in America revolting against a system that they say is inherently oppressive to, black and brown people. As you know, I'm a missionary who's been living and serving in Africa for the last 6 years. And interestingly enough, Zambians know, Africans know that the wealthiest, most prosperous, freest black people in the history of planet Earth live in the United States. No other white dominant country or predominantly white country has ever elected a president or prime minister that was of a minority ethnicity. America did it twice. So it's the least racist and least oppressive regime in existence. So the problem is not that Christians are wanting to fight against oppression, it's that they're defining oppression where it doesn't exist.
So since you live in Africa and you're, removed from day-to-day American culture, when you come home once or twice a year, what have you noticed?
Yeah, it is really interesting. I'm there, 3 or 4 times a year doing different speaking tours and whatnot, and I'm noticing how rapidly these things are progressing. Now, I've been talking, teaching about neo-Marxism, Gramscian Marxism since 2004, 2005, when people would, listen to me and their eyes would cross, and it's gone from people, asking or looking at me like I'm crazy to people now recognizing that this stuff has gone mainstream and that it's metastasized and that something has to be done.
You call CRT a demonic ideology, and I don't disagree. But again, just squaring this with the well-intentioned, social justice-oriented Christian, and then he or she hears something like, "Well, what I'm doing, what I'm supporting, is demonic." How is that?
Well, partly because a lot of people don't realize that when you start talking about the oppression, the oppressive hegemony in America, when you read the literature, when you read Paulo Freire, when you read Kimberly Crenshaw, when you read these things that are being taught in schools of education, at the end of the day, Christianity is understood to be the engine behind that oppressive regime, and ultimately, the critical social justice movement is anti-Christian, which makes it demonic.
Right. It's odd to me because these self-styled Christians who also, perhaps knowingly or unknowingly, are acolytes of Marx and Gramsci. When Marx said that religion was the opiate of the masses, that wasn't a compliment. I don't think that people understand that. He wasn't promoting that as an idea. He was suggesting we need to replace that with a different opiate for the masses.
Yeah, and what does that mean, though? See, for Marx, he thought that the proletariat should revolt against the bourgeoisie, but why didn't they? It was because they'd been lulled to sleep, and he saw religion as one of the major means of that happening. Gramsci said that socialism was that system that must overthrow or overturn Christianity. I mean, these people have been anti-Christian since the beginning. Christianity is the enemy of critical social justice, of critical theory, of critical race theory, critical pedagogy. Christianity is the enemy of those ideologies.
And even beyond a particular faith tradition, the family is the enemy of these individuals and these organizations that are promoting critical race theory. That's not me saying it. That was Black Lives Matter saying it as part of their platform once upon a time. Did we lose vote?
Oh, sorry. Hello.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you hear what I had to say?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. No. I caught the gist of it, but that's why they changed their website,
Right.
because their website was anti-Christian, anti-family, anti-heterosexual, anti-cisgendered, so on and so forth. But people need to understand that the reason that they were anti all those things is because critical race theory and critical whiteness studies teach, again, according to Antonio Gramsci, that these things are part of a hegemony, that there is no objective truth. There are no objective cultural standards. So because of that, all of those things that we hold dear because of the white hegemony. And if you're going to overthrow the white hegemony, you've got to overthrow everything, including the idea of the nuclear family, heterosexuality, Christianity, cisgender, so on and so forth. So I wrote Fault Lines because I really want to help people look under the hood and understand what this movement is about.
And you also wrote it because you're concerned that it has the potential to undermine the Christian faith tradition, whether Catholic or evangelical in this country.
Yeah, it doesn't just have that potential. It's already happening.
Yeah.
We see churches being divided. We see Christian universities being turned inside out. We see families being torn apart by this. This thing is pernicious.
He is Voddie Baucham. He is the Dean of the School of Divinity at African Christian University in Lusaka, Zambia. The book, Fault Lines, The Social Justice Movement and Evangelicalism's Looming Catastrophe. Voddie, thanks so much for joining us. Continued success with your ministry and with the book.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Life is complicated enough without having to worry about your financial concerns when you retire. In a perfect world, your retirement funds would just be there when you reach retirement age.
But it's not a perfect world, and you really need to look ahead and be proactive to manage the dollars you've earned.
The team